Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k subscribers on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. This is a continuation of my series going over all of the main NBA awards. And this one is going to be going over Defensive Player of the Year, obviously. So let's just jump right into it. Don't know why I said that as though I'm Philip DeFranco. But a few things to note in terms of the Defensive Player of the Year award is that this award almost always goes to big men. In particular, tends to go to players who are more team-oriented in terms of their defense. And as a result of that, my DPOY names that I have here, and really I didn't do too many honorable mentions, I think just about everybody here has a real shot at the award, are pretty much all bigs and generally more team defensive oriented guys. There are of course players who are great at locking up one-on-one, but then their team defense isn't as impactful. And then it's just like perimeter players. Like I didn't put Kawhi Leonard on this list. Well, first of all, Kawhi's not going to play most of the year. But even if Kawhi was fully healthy and he played out the entirety of the regular season, I just don't think he's going to win the award, even though he, of course, is the exception. But he obviously also hasn't won the award since he was with the Spurs. So, generally speaking, that is how it goes. And pretty much everyone here is a big man outside of... Well, actually, I mean, the other two guys are power forward, so it depends on whether or not you categorize them as big men. Anyways, my name's here. The first one is the kind of obvious one, and that is Giannis. Now, the Defensive Player of the Year last season was Rudy Gobert, and his name's on here too, but Giannis, to me, is at either the second best defender or the best defender in the league. After that or the guy that I'd probably put above him right now, but honestly, I could go back and forth, would be Bam Adebayo. So, either way, Giannis is an easy pick on top of the fact that he's a big name, which definitely helps. Being well-liked, I was going to say well-liked matters, but then at the same time, Rudy Gobert and Draymond Green have won most of the recent Defensive Player of the Year awards, so maybe that's not true, because NBA fans hate those guys for no reason. I'm doing a video on Draymond Green relatively soon, side note. But Bam, I actually think, is the one of these names that I'm leaning towards for winning the award, because Bam, I think, is going to have a really good year next year offensively. And now I realize why that might sound insane to suggest that would impact his Defensive Player of the Year case, but award races are rather simply just a look at are really just about popularity. And you can be the best defensive player in the league, but if you're not popular in that fact, then maybe you won't win the Defensive Player of the Year award. And if Bam is becoming more popular and he's more talked about next year because he's going to have a bit more of an offensive breakout, suddenly there's a lot of eyes on him, and then as a result, suddenly there's a lot of eyes on his defense on top of his offensive capabilities. So more discourse around Bam Adebayo equals more attention on his defense, which equals maybe Defensive Player of the Year. So that's my logic on that one. Rudy Gobert is just a constant in this debate. He, in terms of the regular season at the very least, is incredibly impactful defensively. In fact, there are very few players that you could argue are more impactful defensively than Rudy Gobert in the regular season at the very least. Defensively, his weaknesses get exploited in Utah. Granted, I will say Rudy Gobert is often overly criticized for his flaws because the Jazz system is understanding of those flaws, and there's many instances where the perimeter players end up failing at their jobs, and then Rudy Gobert is the one to blame for that. Like, for example, if we think of when Terrence Mann hit 6 threes or whatever that was in the Clippers matchup, and I believe he had 36 points or something crazy like that. The reason that happened was the man, whoever was defending the perimeter player, constantly got beat, and then Rudy Gobert had to rotate over to protect the rim, and then Terrence Mann had this open three-pointer. And is that Rudy Gobert's fault that he protected the basket from a layup and instead allowed a Terrence Mann three-pointer? When really it was the defensive mistake of the perimeter player that did that. That said, Rudy Gobert, not well liked. I honestly think it's a little stupid how much Rudy Gobert is disliked, but at the same time, when people call him French Roy Hibbert, it kind of makes me laugh. Anyways, speaking of disliked players, Draymond Green. He's another guy that I think is towards the top of the list in terms of candidates for this award, just simply by the fact that I think the Warriors are going to be back towards winning. And the last time the Warriors were winning, Draymond Green was a Defensive Player of the Year or Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I believe he won it in 2017, but I don't think he won it in 2018. In fact, let me fact check that. Defensive Player of the Year, it was Rudy Gobert. And what do you bet? 2017 Draymond Green? Yes, it was Draymond Green in 2017. So the Warriors are going to be back to winning. He didn't win it in 2018 with Kevin Durant there, but since then he has not really been in a winning situation. So I think the Warriors start winning. Draymond Green's defense gets more praise, more eyeballs on it. Same logic with Bam, really. I think you get in that conversation again. Anthony Davis, I think next year he's going to be the most important player for the Lakers in the regular season. LeBron will still be better, but I think he's going to be coasting to an extreme degree next year. So Anthony Davis will have a lot of attention on him, a lot of media attention on him, and I think he could slot his name in the conversation that way. But Anthony Davis, I just simply think that he's not as good of a defender as Giannis or Bam. And in the regular season, I don't think he's as impactful quite as Rudy Gobert, but I would give Anthony Davis the edge defensively overall just because I value versatility a lot, even if Rudy Gobert is often overly blamed for the failures of Utah's defense, especially in the playoffs, as I mentioned earlier. And then Draymond Green is an interesting defensive player because his impact goes beyond his own ability, not just as a team defender or whatever, but he's also so great at communicating defensively that it'll impact the other player's defense to an extreme degree. Like, I don't think there's any defender that rubs off on the team defense more so than Draymond Green, not just from his ability to be in the right place at the right time, but also direct traffic and tell his teammates to be in the right place at the right time. So that's an element that I don't think necessarily exists with Anthony Davis if I'm just like comparing these guys defensively, but AD could very easily be in this conversation. Joel Embiid, I actually have the last two names here. I have Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons has 4 question marks next to it because Ben Simmons is a very good defensive player, and he was in Defensive Player of the Year conversations last year, but fuck knows what's going on with him next year and what team he's going to be on, what situation that's going to look like, what amount of attention he'll get on said team. Like if he gets traded to the Warriors, there'll be plenty of attention on him, but if he gets traded to the Pacers, not so much the case. So I don't know. Ben could get in that conversation depending on where it goes, but I don't know. Another thing that's important to mention is that winning plays a factor in this, where if you're a good defensive player but your team's not winning that much, you're not so much going to get the attention for that. And then Joel Embiid, of course, the Sixers could be in a weird situation next year, but his defensive impact metrics stand out quite significantly. He's always been a very impactful defensive player, even though he might not always stand out defensively. Like I noticed with the Sixers, he's not always making crazy highlight plays, and he's not the greatest perimeter defender, even though he sometimes has moments of being a weirdly good perimeter defender. I think there's one clip I saw like a week or two ago of him like locking up Trae Young on the perimeter in that second round matchup that was really interesting. But he's just a really good rim protector and a big body, and there's a lot of value in that. And he's a really good defensive player. There are other names that I guess I could throw an honorable mention to, like Clint Capella and Miles Turner. Miles Turner, I feel, is a little bit underappreciated, but it's kind of like the same conversation with Ben Simmons, where the likelihood of him winning it, if he's in like Indiana, and Miles Turner is currently in Indiana, is not that high. And then Clint Capella, incredible like defensive force for the Hawks. Like I'd say Clint Capella is pretty much single-handedly responsible for the Hawks not being a bad defensive team. Now, when DeAndre Hunter comes back and he's healthy for a long period of time, I think his perimeter defense is going to show to be not just as valuable, because perimeter defense is not as important as paint defense and not as impactful as being a center, but it'll definitely get to, I think that will get the Hawks to the point of being a good defensive team. But Clint Capella definitely very impactful as well, and I think could even potentially get his name in this conversation. But yeah, those are lesser names is going to be a factor in that, unfortunately. That said, in terms of giving like my top names, there's actually a lot of good candidates, and what's weird about Defensive Player of the Year is it always feels like there's like 2 candidates by the end of the year, and I don't always know what goes into this award. Like, there's other awards where the criteria seems pretty set, but the Defensive Player of the Year every year just feels to me like it kind of happens. But among these names, I would go with Bam as my pick to win the award, just because I said I think there's going to be a lot more eyes on him this year. And then after that, I'm probably going with Giannis and then Draymond Green. And then Gobert and Anthony Davis can fight over the 4th spot. I don't particularly care. But I just think Draymond's going to get a lot more praise his way defensively now that the Warriors are going to be winning again. And Giannis is Giannis. And Bam is, I think, the best defensive player in the league, or maybe tied with Giannis for that. Because I think Giannis makes a little bit more like highlight plays defensively, but I think Bam is just like 5% better maybe. I don't know. I don't think there's a significant difference one way or the other, but so that's my order. I'm going to go Bam, Giannis, and Draymond. Is that what I said? Whatever, the first time I said it. Anyways, that is it. Goodbye.